We're switching to non-volatile at this point. So we need some disk imaging tools. Windows doesn't have any tools that go to the forensics level that I know of. Now, I know that there is something out there called the Coffee, I believe that's the name, but its tool set is relatively weak. Also, locally, we could use Xcopy, disk copy, volume shadow copy, or the Windows Explorer to copy files off. But if we're looking at this from a malware attack standpoint, it may be that those tools have been subverted. So what you'll have to do is, if you want to use those types of tools from Windows, you're going to have to bring them with you from a known valid source, and you're going to have to make sure that each one of those executables that you're using has actually been tested with an MD5 or SHA-1 hash to know that it's consistent and delivered from the vendor correctly and not been compromised itself. Now, you can use disk imaging tools. There's FireWire tools that are out there that'll help you with full logical imaging of the drive. That's logical imaging of the drive. So let me ask you a question. If we're doing logical imaging of the drive, what are we missing? What things have you learned about that we're missing at this point? If you said slack space, you'd be right. If you said deleted partitions, you'd be right. It's all those data warrants that are outside the understanding or scope of the operating system itself. It could be sectors that are marked bad that are actually good, and that the evil rootkit can actually go address those bad sectors and circumvent the operating system. So remember, they don't include that slack space or those deleted files. So what could we use? Well, we're going to talk a lot about DD. We're going to talk a little bit about FTK. But I really want to spend a lot of time on MoonSolo and their tool called Dump It. Again, this is a free tool, and it is approved and used by many forensics investigators out there. So this diagram that you see here is from MoonSolo. They say, okay, we need to do acquisition. We want to acquire the hibernation file. So what we'll do is we'll do a memory dump, and MoonSolo has two different tools. They have a hibernation to dump and a hibernation to bin tool that can do the analysis. Now, they don't capture the Hiber file. We do that ourselves by pulling that data off of a disk that has already been brought down. It's not a live operating system at that point. That's if we did hibernation. Now, if we didn't do hibernation and we're running live at this moment in time, MoonSolo's Dump It will allow us to actually acquire this raw memory dump or the Microsoft crash dump information. And then again, we'll use two other MoonSolo tools to actually pull this information out and dig down into it. Let's talk a little DD here. It does disk-to-disk copies or disk-to-image copies, and it can copy from any Linux-mounted system. It can copy many different types of partitions. Look at that list of the different types of formatted partitions and file systems that we can get our hands on using DD. We can extract this digital evidence and copy it to any type of media that the Linux operating system understands, which is pretty much everything out there. Okay, so now here's the syntax. DD if, and that's your source. OF, that's your target. BS is your byte size, how much you want to do. If there's anything that you want to skip, seek, or convert, and you can do a conversion from one type to another. We need to dig down more into this command. So if we want to extract just the master boot record, remember the master boot record is always located on cylinder 0, head 0, sector 1 of the first disk, of the first sector on the disk. So we can address that specifically. DD IF equals dev HDA, that's our first hard drive, and then we're going to send it somewhere else. That's our bin file at this point. We want 512. Remember, that's that first, that's that size of the master boot record. Count 1 OD minus XA MBR bin will get us just the master boot record. So we can dig down into that one. Now, what I really like is combining two tools together. One of my favorite tools that I learned from Ed Scotus is called Netcat. And Netcat allows you to communicate to a device over the network and do command and control of that. It is your best tool for It's your Swiss Army knife of all the tools out there that will allow you to compromise and control a machine. And what Netcat can be used for is also for good. So we have to have a source machine that's willing to listen to Netcat or listen on a particular port, and we're redirecting our output of this source information over the Netcat port to the listener on the other side and importing that data. Now notice what we do is we say IF, that's our DD, IF starts the command piped into Netcat. So take the contents of the DD, the disk duplication, and pipe it out to this network connection over this port. On the opposite side, we need to reverse the command. We're receiving something via Netcat over this port, and we're putting it into a disk duplication file on this side. So we're piping it back into DD. Netcat is just the way that we get it across the network. That's a really elegant way to do a disk dump, but also a really slow way to do a disk dump. And we have to be aware of that, noting how fast our network is, how big our source and destination are.